Donald Trump currently appears unassailable. By bringing his former critics directly into his administration, he has effectively dismantled the traditional centers of opposition. Figures like J.D. Vance, Senator Marco Rubio, and Doug Burgum have transitioned from public rivals to key members of the inner circle. We usually imagine power as a fortress designed to repel external attacks. However, a structure remains vulnerable to a collapse that begins within its foundation. In The Sun Also Rises, Ernest Hemingway describes bankruptcy occurring in two distinct stages, gradually, then suddenly. Political authority follows a similar trajectory. Surrounding a leader with ambitious rivals places those individuals in a unique position. They become close proximity observers, tasked with measuring the exact moment a leader's influence starts to wane. In 1990, the UK provided a stark blueprint for this process. Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher had secured 3 consecutive election victories and commanded a massive global reputation. The first vulnerabilities appeared following an unpopular proposed poll tax. While the policy didn't remove her immediately, it created the initial cracks in her political armor. These policy failures signaled weakness to the ambitious figures within the party. They provide the necessary opening for internal challengers to begin testing the leader's grip. Michael Heseltine, a former member of Thatcher's own cabinet, saw this opening. He possessed the ego and the patience to wait for her support to soften. While Thatcher was attending a summit in Paris, Heseltine triggered a minor administrative leadership contest. This initial move failed to defeat her directly. However, it successfully pulled the thread of internal discontent and proved to the party that she was no longer untouchable. The conflict moved from the public press into the private calculations of the back rooms, where the party began to evaluate the leader's actual strength. This is where the suddenly happens. Ministers calculate that staying loyal to a weakened leader poses a greater risk than defecting. Private assurances evaporated. Colleagues filed into Thatcher's office to inform her she no longer had the votes to lead. Thatcher returned to 10 Downing Street, having lost the headcount of her own caucus. She was ultimately replaced by the unexpected and unassuming politician, John Major. Boris Johnson followed this pattern decades later. He survived repeated public scandals, yet his tenure ended only when his own cabinet began a wave of resignations. Richard Nixon resigned only after his own party's senators confirmed they lacked the votes to save him from being removed from office. History's most famous downfall followed this mechanical role. 60 of Julius Caesar's closest allies plotted against him, forming a filibuster-proof majority to execute his removal. The people who once clapped the loudest at the rallies are often the same ones who eventually decide the future is safer without the leader. Donald Trump's strategy of keeping rivals close is a shrewd way to neutralize immediate threats, but it carries a significant long-term risk. Figures like Marco Rubio are now positioned to measure Trump's political capital from the inside, evaluating his strength in real time. Political alliances are based entirely on mutual benefit. Loyalty in this environment is a transactional commodity with a clear expiration date. That loyalty expires the moment a leader's weakness begins to threaten the individual ambitions of their allies. A leader can maintain high television ratings and massive crowds, but power ultimately rests on the quiet absence of reassurance in the backrooms. When a downfall occurs, it is rarely theatrical. It is mathematical. Power ends with a simple head count.